Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. Got a barn burner of a video today. Today's video will be entitled International Doping in Sports. Right. So, whether you just spent the weekend watching the Masters golf tournament from Augusta, Georgia, or whether you enjoyed watching the Paris-Roubaix Cobblestone Classic in northern France, from Compiègne to the velodrome in Roubaix, a 166-mile race over 6 hours long. The 2026 edition was record fast pace because they had a tailwind at the start. And even though they had an above average amount of flat tires and bike changes and mechanical problems, it still turned out to average about 28 miles per hour average speed, 27.7, I think, something of that nature. If you can imagine riding a bicycle close to 30 miles an hour for 6 hours, you'd think you were on a motorcycle. You do know that most off-road motorcycle races average, 25 to 26 miles an hour, even though the motorcycles can go maybe 75 miles an hour on the super fast straights. But because of all the windy corners and mud holes and obstacles, it knocks the speed down. But anyway, be that as it may, the Roman cobblestones of northern France are brutal. All right. And we know in our culture of Roman circuses, which are essential to pacify and control the masses, you must have distractions, right? And of course, what can be a more entertaining distraction than watching sport? So, Roman games, gladiator battles, good versus evil, woke messaging, and alcohol typically all go together. Drinking beer, and you're eating cheese, and you're watching someone else do heavy lifting, right? While you passively inject yourself into the heroics that you watch on the road or in the arena. Now, I'm going to focus on cycling, even though whatever we talk about today applies to tennis, applies to football. That would be high school football, college football, and NFL, not for long. Yes. National Football League. This applies to baseball. I'm talking about high school baseball, talking about college baseball, I'm talking about Major League Baseball. I'm talking about basketball, again, high school, college, and NBA. National Bastards Association. Anyway, it applies to World Cup soccer, which is the biggest sport of all, World Cup soccer. So applies to every single strategic hamlet in the world, whether we're talking about China, Australia, whether we're talking about Latin America, Central America, Africa, or continental Europe and Russia. And these stories should resonate with you that it applies to badminton, Olympic badminton, all Olympic sports, swimming, running, marathon running, as well as sprinting, track and field. It applies to Bruce Jenner, known as Caitlyn. You know who Caitlyn Jenner is, right? Bruce Jenner. He won an Olympic gold medal in the decathlon in Montreal, Canada. It would apply to Eric Heiden, who won five, count 'em, five gold medals in Quebec, Canada. That's right, Eric Heiden in the Winter Olympics. So, what we should tell you is that your favorite athlete is a doper. All right. So, just get over it. If you can't handle that, you're not going to handle the fact that you don't have a country and the voting doesn't matter and that the system is rigged. And the system is built upon the military hierarchy of the obelisk, which is the chain of command, which is obedience, number one. We obey, we follow orders, or people die. It's just that simple. And also the Omerta code of silence. We mustn't ever talk about the corruption within our business or our sport or our medical therapy for the athletes of the sport. And you should know that when you go down the path of professional or elite sports, you take a scholarship to go play, you know, uh, lacrosse or rugby at a university, and all the universities have athletic scholarships that will pay for 100% to 50% of your tuition, depending on how important of an athlete you are. You'll buy into the program that this is just therapeutic and it's necessary and it's part of your healthcare treatments. Because it is true that, in endurance sports or repetitive sports where you practice and train and you go to the weight room and then you get massage and you have to recover, there's no way your body can recover quickly enough based on the schedule. So they always have you performing either in practice or on the field in competition much more often than your body can handle. Your body might take a week to 10 days to recover, and you'll be given overnight. You might get 12 hours recovery, or maybe get 24, you get a day off, maybe you get 36 hours recovery or rest. But that's it. And in professional cycling, it's a brutal sport, and you ride your bike pretty much at least 6 days a week. You don't always ride hard. You race hard, but you don't necessarily ride hard. And in the race, you don't always ride maximum effort all the time because it's very tactical. That's a whole nother animal we're not going to get into in this video, which is the conspiracies, the secret plots that go into all professional sports where the athlete managers, the managers of the teams, or the coaching staff, as it were, they get together to figure out how to divvy up the advertising sponsorship money and the prize money, and then put on a show. They put on a show for the audience and the fans. But then back at the hotel after the game, they deliver cherry pie, apple pie, peach cobbler, pumpkin pie with the wads of cash to share the winnings that the winning team visits the losing teams to give them their share so that they didn't foil the predetermined result. You do know that the World Series of Baseball is rigged, and that shouldn't be a surprise. We had the infamous White Sox black turned into the Black Sox of Chicago back, when we were going to roll out prohibition in 1919, 1920. We had the fixing of the World Series of Baseball by some Jews in New York City, Arnold Rothstein to be specific. He's from New York, but he fixed the World Series. It was the Yankees of the Bronx versus the Chicago White Sox. The game was rigged. All right. So, not the only time that's ever happened, certainly not the first rodeo in baseball, but you can apply that to football and to basketball. And today, with all of the degenerate gambling options, they can rig the game without actually rigging the outcome. It doesn't have to be the final winner or loser. You can say, you can bet on who's leading after the first quarter, or what is the spread, what is the point spread, or what is the time gap. um, the gambling community has learned to get more than one bet out of a customer. So once they know you're a degenerate gambler, they'd like you to make a dozen different bets. If you don't believe me, just head on down to the horse racing tracks where they offer trifecta bets and a combination of bets to enhance your payout, also to maximize your losses. It's primarily the reason why they offer all these betting opportunities. You have a low probability of winning any of your bets. But of course, there are winners. Of course, at least 90% of the people get money back, but the 10% of the top is skimmed for the promoter of the event. At least 10%, if not higher. All right. So anyway, let's get into doping in professional cycling, shall we? So we have a number of cyclists that are in the news today. One is in the news for the wrong reasons. It's domestic abuse of his estranged wife. We're going to get to him in a moment. He's a Spaniard. He's currently in jail in España. He was arrested, I believe, on Sunday after Catholic Mass. So I want to tell you that more currently on Sunday, before Oscar Fiera was arrested, he's a three-time national champion. We had another, pardon me, he's a three-time world champion as well as a national champion. But we had Tadej Pogacar finish second place in the Paris-Roubaix Classic in northern France. And the reason that that's important on Sunday was that Tadej Pogacar, all he does is win races. He's won over six consecutive huge races. Okay, the guy won four Tour de France titles: 2020, 2021, 2024, 2025. He won the Giro d'Italia, the Tour of Italy, in 2024 and 2025. He won 10 one-day monument classics of cycling. The Tour of Flanders, he has won that two times. He's won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which is a brutally hard race, won that three times, and he won the Giro di Lombardia five times. That's out of Como, Italy, and he's won that race five consecutive years in a row. He also has won the UCI World's Road Championship race, the men's world champion race in 2024 and 2025. This puts Tadej Pogacar, sponsored by UAE, United Emirates Republic, a Swiss bank in the Middle East, in Dubai. This puts Tadej Pogacar at the top of cycling in the history of cycling. It puts him really above Eddie Merckx, the cannibal. Eddie Merckx of Belgium has been the dominant professional men's road cyclist and world record holder of the hour record. Eddie Merckx has been sort of cast aside one spot and now is really the second most winningest rider in the history of cycling. Now, the scary thing is, Tadej Pogacar's not done yet. I think he's only 26 years old. He's very young. So he has at least another 6 years of racing, minimum 6 years if he wants. I would assume he will retire certainly by age 32 because when I tell you about the doping, you got to get out of that. The sooner you get out of the doping, the healthier the rest of your life's going to be. But anyway, the guy's already won virtually everything there is to win. There's just a couple of races. Paris-Roubaix, he's raced it twice. He's finished second place twice. He finished second place the first time he ever did it. But I mean, he's multiple world champion. He's four times Tour de France champion. He will undoubtedly win the Tour de France again in 2026. That'll put him in the same category as Eddie Merckx and Miguel Indurain, and just a handful of people who've won the Tour de France five times. Bernard Hinault and Eddie Merckx and and like I said, Miguel Indurain. There's just very few people that can win the race once, let alone five times. So everyone loves a winner, and everyone loves Pogacar, despite the fact that he's sponsored by Switzerland. Now, his manager and his supervisor boss is Mauro Gianetti, and Mauro Gianetti is a big cycling champion himself. He's a Swiss national, and he almost died and spent 10 days in the ICU in the University of Lausanne Hospital in 1998. I believe it was during the Tour of Romandy, and the Tour of Romandy is in the month of June 1998. And one of the greatest doping scandals in the history of cycling happened at the Tour de France, actually happened a couple of days before the Tour de France began. So, really, while Mauro Gianetti, a Swiss national who was a multiple monument winner, while he laid in his bed in the hospital in Switzerland, uh, the Festina affair, which is a Spanish watchmaker who sponsors the Tour de France, along with Credit Lyonnais and Credit Agricole. These are two bankers, and Festina are the real underwriters of the Tour de France. And you should know that while Mauro Gianetti was recuperating from an overdose of parafluorocarbons, blood doping using chemicals used for industrial refining of metal processes, that Team Festina was being arrested and detained and questioned along with Team TVM and some other teams. And half of the 180 riders abandoned the race by the second week. By what, 10 days into the Tour de France, half the people quit. There's about 180 people in the race who race, riders that race, and 90 of them went home. The race was eventually won by Marco Pantani, who's dead today. He died at age 34. And he won the Tour of Italy in 1998, and he won the Tour de France in 1998. And then by 2004, he was dead at age 34. All right. And they wanted to say he had a cocaine overdose. They always lie. Okay. He had a heart attack. All right. So he takes a lot of drugs besides cocaine. And this, again, applies to football, baseball, basketball. They use cocaine in those sports too, right? Along with heroin, also known as morphine. Processed heroin is morphine. All right. So what I wanted to tell you is that the listing of doping scandals in cycling is just about limitless. But if you really want to drill into baseball and corked bats, amphetamine use, Pete Rose is known more for doping than he is gambling. He got in trouble, and it has not been admitted into the Hall of Fame due to his gambling on baseball. But his doping, decadorbalene and stanozolol and amphetamines and other drug products used at the Gold Gym in Cincinnati, Ohio, is infamous. What's interesting from my point of view, being a paper boy back in the 1960s and early 70s, how none of these doping stories hit the front page. And the main sports in America are baseball, basketball, and of course football being number one. But throughout the world, it's World Cup soccer, Formula One racing, and professional men's cycling. Those are the top sports in the world. And lesser sports are tennis and rugby and squash. Some of these sports are bigger if you're in India or China. But it's soccer, otherwise known as World Cup FIFA football, and it's Formula One car racing, and it's you know tennis, track and field, the Olympic sports, that kind of stuff. But professional men's cycling is at least third or fourth most popular sport of all time in Europe and in Asia. All right, so what you should know is the reason that these Roman circuses are promoted and corporate sponsored by the College of Corporations is because they're pacification and control exercises. It also creates an audience for platform to deliver the woke messaging. So besides selling cars and electronics and to build out the 7G, 8G mesh network, using companies like a Swiss bank and using like UAE as a Swiss bank, United Arab Emirates is a Swiss bank, and they do have a World Cup soccer team, and they have a Formula One racing Grand Prix in Dubai, and they have a annual cycling tour race. I think it's 5 days out of Dubai in UAE. So we have Festina watchmaker from Spain, Credit Lyonnais Bank in France and Paris, and we have Credit Agricole from Paris, and we have La Vie Claire, Deutsche Telekom from Germany, and we have Mercanto Uno from Italy, Mape, a chemical company from Italy, Panasonic, PDM, which is an electronics company, MG, which is sports cars, and DuPont, which is electronics and weapon systems, DuPont, and the DuPont family. And there are hundreds of other corporate sponsors like Radio Shack, United States Postal Service, and of course Lance Armstrong's number one sponsor, Nike. Had Lance Armstrong never got Nike as a sponsor through Tom Weisel and Phil Knight, who went to Stanford together and both got MBAs from Stanford. If were it not for that, then you wouldn't know who Lance Gunderson Farmstrong was. He never would have won a Tour de France. You've got to have sponsorship. All right? That's just how it rolls. Corporate sponsorship is the end all be all of professional sports. Right. Corporate sponsorship, like Amgen Corporation that actually makes the most popular doping product in sports and for the military, EPO, blood doping, blood boosting, oxygen cell boosting, red blood cell boosting. Amgen Corporation was a big sponsor in cycling in America and in Europe. Um, Bristol Myers Squibb makes chemotherapy for one of their only methods of treating cancer. And Motorola sponsored Lance Armstrong also. Motorola, Oakley, Bristol Myers Squibb, U.S. Postal Service, and of course, sneaker sales and yellow bracelet sales. Nike, right? Nike. What's Nike's motto? Just do it, right? Just do it. Just cheat. Just dope. That's their motto. I mean, look at Nike. They promote and pimp out doping, right? Marion Jones, Lance Armstrong, Michael Vick, quarterback in the NFL, Tim Montgomery, the world's fastest 100-meter sprinter. Tim Montgomery busted for doping. Um, Regina Jacobs, Kelly White. They have a legacy of doping athletes that they pay money to in corporate sponsorship, and they support those athletes through their rumored allegations of doping. And yet later we find out, yeah, they were doping the whole time. All right. So today in the news, literally this morning, is Oscar Fiera, and he is a three-time world champion of cycling. He's an excellent sprinter, which is why you don't want to come to the line with him because he'll probably beat you in the sprint. Anyway, he is in trouble. His wife filed a domestic violence complaint. They went to Catholic church on Sunday afternoon, and Oscar Fiera was there in a different pew than his wife. He then walked over, sat down beside his wife, and when she stood to get up, he strong armed her and sort of intimidated her physically. So she went over to the police and they went to his home later that evening, around 7 p.m. local time. And the what they call the National Guardia police arrested the world champion, the three-time world champion. And he is now going to have to post bail and be arraigned today. I'm assuming today is the arraignment. All right. So anyway, he's having some problems. He's, I believe, age 52 years old, and he's retired from cycling. But you can see, probably this is a result of him being doped for 20 years at least. From probably age 13. Age 13 or 14 is when doping begins in America. Now, when we say doping, I think the media has done a colossal job of concealing it. And of course, the media, no one in the media, no journalist that I've met actually understands what the word means because there's two types of products, two categories that all athletes use. One is narcotics. That clearly meets the definition of doping. And you would normally need, these are controlled substances, and you would need a prescription from a medical doctor to get them. Almost nobody has prescriptions from medical doctors. And in the whole scheme of doping, medical personnel are mostly not involved. There are medical doctors who do make money on the side from doping athletes. Absolutely, there are. But typically, it's people who are known as plumbers and mules, people who transport the drugs, who get the drugs on the black market, out the back door of all the big pharmaceutical company warehouses, and um, and they dope horses and dogs, so they're familiar. They dope pigeons for pigeon racing. Yes, that's how they learn what drug products work. And so, in the category of narcotics, the most popular being amphetamine or stimulants, the most popular of that might be called Ritalin. They have brand names they run by. So, Ritalin is very popular amongst athletes, especially children athletes. Then they use antidepressant products to boost your confidence. To boost your confidence, use Prozac, right? And you use morphine, heroin, processed heroin, because that gives you an overall feeling of happiness and well-being and boosts your confidence when you're on morphine. If you don't believe me, spend some time in the ICU with broken bones like I have and tell me how you feel when you're on morphine, and then tell me how you feel when you're off morphine. It's a dramatically huge difference. All right. You literally can continue to perform if you're on, you can perform in a boxing match if you're on morphine and amphetamines, even if you have a broken leg. Don't advise it, but athletes do have to compete while they're hurt, and they have to train when they're hurt too, because they don't want to lose their fitness level. So you see, it's a spiral. It's a spiraling cycle of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? So anyway, Oscar Fiera, three-time world road champion in cycling, yeah, busted for domestic abuse of his estranged wife. They're not divorced yet, but they're in the process, allegedly, of getting divorced. They've been separated since November 2025, so it's only been a few months. All right. Then the other thing in the news was, of course, Mauro Giannetti having to explain how his boy finished second place in a race he's not suited to at all. You'd think he'd be normally getting like sixth, seventh, eighth place, but was actually battling for the win in Paris-Roubaix, which is a race not suited to the climber and lighter, skinnier guy, Tadej Pogacar. But because it's almost like he has an electric motor in his bike, which, by the way, that's entirely possible. Yes, they do use electric motors and they cheat. There is no drug testing in any sport, period. End of story. Okay, so let's get that straight. Everyone talks about drug testing. Okay, that's like saying Wall Street self polices itself. No, it doesn't, and neither does the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. They don't perform audits, and the IRS leaves all these corporations alone. They all cheat on their taxes. They all pump and dump their stock. There's engaging in insider trading is rampant, and that the stock prices are the result of the banks deciding what each company should be worth, like Amazon or Apple or Nvidia. Companies that have no profits are worth trillions, and companies that have low profits are worth 2 trillion, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole Wall Street story is a matrix. It's a metaverse. It's based on dishonesty. Okay. And dishonesty will buy you some very expensive suits and Italian shoes. All right. Here's some names. These are all world champion road cyclists. We just talked about Oscar Fiera. He did most of his career in the Danish company Rabobank, again, a Swiss bank. And Rabobank has been engaged in numerous doping scandals. The biggest was with Michael Rasmussen, who really did win the 2006 Tour de France. But there was a mountain biking mule who brought him his synthetic blood out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, called Hemopure, from a company called BioPure. This is where MIT is located. And he brought him some doping blood that was hidden in a cycling shoebox, CD shoes, and he flew from Denver, Colorado, over to Milan, Italy, to the Malpensa airport, whereupon he discovered he opened the shoebox when he got to Milan and saw that it was all these tin foil packages. Took it to a laboratory and found out it was synthetic hemoglobin, meaning fake blood from cows. The derivative is cow blood. Okay, cow blood. So Michael Rasmussen probably was using cow blood to help him win the Tour de France. Anyway, when organizers learned of this, they didn't report it, of course, and they cooked up an excuse to disqualify him on the last mountain stage, which had nothing to do with doping. And so the victory was given to Alberto Contador of Spain, who later earned the nickname Contadoper. Contadoper, like Lance Armstrong. There's Alberto Contadoper. he said that his doping came from doped meat cows because he had hamburger and a taco, and it must have been the dope from the cow from the ground beef that he ate. You should, the excuses for being busted in doping go on, but you should know that very few people are ever busted from the urine tests. My experience is that, say, in the Tour de France, they test two riders per day out of 180 riders. And that most of the time, when you go into the drug enforcement, WADA, World Agency for Doping Control, they don't have any plastic cups, which they hand you a newspaper and tell you to read the newspaper or magazines like you're sitting in a doctor's office. But they don't have any plastic cups, which means you don't pee in the cup because they don't have any cups to pee in. So you just sit there for 15 minutes, then you leave, having not been tested. Of course, you don't fail a drug test. You should know in the urine test, you cannot tell 99% of the products used. The products are narcotics. Those typically are tested for in urine tests, like amphetamines. But the major products would be the hormones, peptide hormones, which are not narcotics. All right. And that's part of doping too. Human growth hormone, or in lieu of human growth hormone, you can use insulin and glucose IV feeds, insulin through intravenous delivery, and subcutaneous injections into your belly or buttocks. Testosterone, cortisone, corticosteroids, cocaine, morphine, caffeine, all injected products. They also have gels that can be rubbed on your body. And again, amphetamines and antidepressant drugs are routinely used daily in grand tours like the Tour of Italy, the Tour of Spain, and the Tour de France because you only have 16 hours to recover before you have to do it all again, and you have to race for 21 days. They give you one rest day. Sometimes they give you two rest days, but typically it's one rest day and 21 work days. So you couldn't possibly do the race and finish it unless you were using the gear. That's what the athletes call it, the gear. They call it the gear. Like the juxtaposition uses the internet. The military internet is my gear. All right. So Mauro Gianetti, who spent 10 days in ICU because of perfluorocarbons, plus he uses EPO, plus, every drug I've just told you, insulin, growth hormones, cortisone, cocaine, heroin, morphine, amphetamines, Prozac, etc. Uses the whole kitchen sink. There are literally 3 dozen products between narcotics and peptide hormones that everybody uses. Salbutamol is used relentlessly and everyone claims to have asthma in the summertime, but that's another drug. Now, a lot of those products are used locally in local races all over the world too. Here in California, most definitely salbutamol inhalers are rampant. Okay, and it's from people who do not have asthma, but it does help. Amphetamines and salbutamol inhalers will make you go faster on a bicycle. I'm here to tell you. And the testosterone will make you feel flying on a magic carpet with Houdini. All right, I have 10 world championship names here I'm going to mention. We already said Oscar Fiera, who is in jail today, probably getting out on bail after his arraignment. Oscar Fiera is a three-time world champion, and he's implicated with doping through Michael Rasmussen because that's his teammate in the Tour de France for Rabobank, a Danish bank, as a sponsor. All right, and they use Hemopure synthetic hemoglobins. So I would assume Oscar Fiera does too. He's not going to come to the line and sprint for a world title unless he's got some synthetic blood in his system, right? It's impossible. That race takes 6.5 hours to finish. You're not going to last 6.5 hours at 28 miles per hour if you're not on the gear. And we have Mauro Gianetti. He did not win a world championship, but he did win Liège-Bastogne-Liège in a embarrassing. He rode away from everyone. Stephen Roush, Stephen Roche of Team Carrera. He's implicated in doping. He won the Tour of Italy, the Tour de France, and the World Championship road race, all three in the same year, 1987. There's only three people who've ever done that before. It's a Herculean feat. Yeah, like I said, only three people have done it. They've all used drugs. And Stephen Roush is implicated because his teammates have been busted for drugs, even though Stephen Roush has not been, but he's on a team of dopers. So he's just like Greg LeMond. As another example, Greg LeMond, his teammates are Johan Museo, Bernard Hinault, and they're associated with doping. And they went against his main rival, Lauren Fignon, and he's admitted to doping, blood doping, and all of the therapeutic products to recover Lauren Fignon. But in terms of world title champions, Oscar Fiera, Stephen Roche, Marco Pantani, who also won the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France in 1998, the year that Mauro Giannini was in the hospital. Marco Pantani won the Tour de France with half the people quitting. Alex Zoul was the favorite to win that race. He abandoned. He was the leader of Team Festina. He was the world time trialing champion in 1998. And probably he was 1997 the world champion in time trials, and he resigned from the Tour de France in July 1998 and did not finish the race. All right, then we have Johan Museo, who is like Joe Montana is to the NFL football. He is to Belgian cycling, like Eddie Merckx, Tom Boonen. We have Johan Museo. He won a world road title in Lugano, Switzerland. His neighbor, who's a veterinarian, got his house raided and said that all of the drugs that he had there were sold to Johan Museo, his next door neighbor, who was world champion, also former teammates of Greg LeMond. So Greg LeMond can say that he doesn't dope, but his teammates did, including Johan Museo. We have Pedro Delgado. He was on the PDM team. The entire PDM team had to drop out of the 1990 Tour de France because they all overdosed on EPO, also known as Aranesp, made by Amgen Corporation. And Pedro Delgado was the winner of the 1988 Tour de France. And Miguel Indurain won 5 Tour de France's and a world champion time trialing title. He's implicated in doping because he was teammates with Pedro Delgado, who is a confirmed doper. Michel Pollentier was going to win the 1978 Tour de France. He had a fairly substantial lead. He won the penultimate stage on L'Alpe d'Huez, defeating Bernard Hinault. Um, and then he cheated on a urine test using a long sleeve jersey and a rubber hose and his mechanic's urine. And so they disqualified him for 30 days, not a 2 year ban, just a 30-day ban, and gifting the Tour de France to Bernard Hinault, a French national, and his first of 5 Tour de France victories. The first one was a gift. There was no way Bernard Hinault was going to win the Tour de France in 1978 unless they disqualified Michel Pollentier, a Belgian champion. All right, then we have Jacques Anquetil. He won 5 Tour de France's. He's implicated in doping. Lauren Fignon is implicated in doping. Tom Simpson won a world championship. He's implicated in doping in that he was racing the 1967 Tour de France and died halfway up the Mont Ventoux climb in Provence, southern France. He died. And they did an autopsy and found the entire pharmacy in his body, amphetamines and cortisone and morphine. And he had a heart attack. He's only 29 years old. All right. Marco Pantani, dead at age 34. Frank Vanderbroek, dead at 34. Jose Marie Jimenez, a Spaniard, dead at age 32. He's a teammate of Miguel Indurain and Pedro Delgado, and he is dead at age 32. Jacques Anquetil, dead at age 53. Lauren Fignon, dead at age 50. Tom Simpson, dead during the Tour de France at age 29. So I have 10 world champion names I've given you, and I've given you 6 dead world class cyclists who are dead before age 53, although most of them are dead at 32 and 34 years old and age 29. I could give you a list of over 100 professional cycling athletes that are dead before age 34. It's extremely common because of the blood doping aspect. The blood doping is dangerous. When you go to sleep at night, that's typically how you die, is about 3 or 4 in the morning when your heart rate is only 50 beats per minute and it just hiccups and you die in your bed, dead in your bed, right? So the products used are insulin, glucose, cortisone, cocaine, heroin, morphine, Prozac, antidepressant products, euphoric products, probably ecstasy, amphetamines, Ritalin, uh, drugs like luteinization products, EPO, or blood transfusions of your own blood extracted on a training camp and then reintroduced during your race, a stage race, multiple day race. Get it, it's like a mash unit. Most of the doping goes on in hotel rooms, right? During the Tour de France, they relocated from the hotels because you could be raided. Like in Tour of Italy, had a big raid when I went over there in 1999. Huge raid in the Principality of San Remo, and that made Marco Pantani quit the race. He was defending champion. He had to quit because they were going to bust him for more doping. So typically, they've moved the doping and the IV feeds from the hotel rooms to recreational vehicles. So it looks like you're a tourist. You don't put your team or sponsorship, corporate sponsorship name on your camper, and then you just do it. You're one of thousands of tourists, right? You're just anonymous, and there's no way the police can raid every recreational vehicle camper. So that's what they've been doing since 1999 is they moved the operation from the hotel rooms where you get massaged, you shower, massage, and then you take your injections and IV feeds. Standard operating procedure for stage racing. And they also do doping at university laboratories with PhD supervisors. Michele Ferrari, for example. There are many people like Jennifer Doudna and Rachel Horowitz who use athletes to test their Frankenstein monster experiments that goes on internationally throughout the world. They're not medical doctors, right? They're researchers. Researchers. I hope you understand. I hope I'm getting through. This is standard. This is NFL. This is basketball. This is all your favorite athletes. Yeah, Tom Brady, Steph Curry, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan. Okay. Not just Marion Jones and Lance Armstrong, not just a few scapegoats. I'm telling you, it's a universal policy with an American Code of Conduct where everyone automatically denies. If you don't deny, you will lose your corporate sponsor. They will have to fire you. And they tell you, just deny and we'll back you, and you still get a paycheck. You see? And that's how COVID works with medical doctors, right? I mean, we're already in the news yesterday was that we have a new variant of COVID out there. It's in 25 states, which is half of all the states, right? And that they're saying they're watching it to see if it turns into a pandemic, but you should get your boosters, get a test. But there's no test for this variant, right? And there's no vaccine for it either. So they want you to get the old vaccine and the old PCR test, which is more of the same thing to hook you up and tether you with a strong signal to the cloud, to the internet. In other words, the solution for the new variant of COVID is the same as the old variant, the Omicron variant, or the coronavirus, or the COVID 19. It's all about real ID, verifying your DNA with your bone marrow and putting it into the lab so that you can be subjected to molecular engineering and Cas9 CRISPR therapeutics. That's what COVID is. It's the Havana syndrome. It's radiation poisoning delivered by sound, light, and energy. And they financially weaponized it using the medical reimbursement systems that they will pay doctors to give COVID vaccines and to recommend the PCR test. They get paid on all that. And that's why doctors will do it. That's why doctors will help dope athletes is for a paycheck. Because that's what it comes down to money comes down to money. Doctors feel like they hate their jobs. They really do. They're restricted to the standard of care, which is a limit to the number of therapeutic advices they can give people. They're locked into a reimbursement system. So if they don't recommend a COVID shot, someone else will, right? So they might as well get the money. The end justifies the means. That's how it works in professional international doping. That's how it works in high school. That's how it works in grammar school. That's how it works in Pop Warner football in the summer that the kids go from eighth to ninth grade and they leave Pop Warner and they don't want to play freshman football. They want to play JV or varsity football immediately at age 14. You got to be on steroids to do that and amphetamines. Thanks for listening. Do like and share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. Take care now. And do pay attention to your Roman circuses, knowing that they're fully doped and rigged, fixed, and they're in league with each other because it's a small group of people and they all know each other and they change teams. They're very interchangeable. They're all subjected to injury. Their life in sports is limited by the number of injuries that they get. So they all work together to put on a show for the drunken fans. Take care. Bye bye.